A man can play video games for hours. He can scroll through social media until his thumbs go numb. He can binge an entire series and call it just one more episode. But ask him to study for 30 minutes and suddenly it feels like punishment. Ask him to start a project and 5 minutes later he is already moving toward the fridge, convincing himself that wiping the counter somehow counts as progress. A man knows that studying, training, and doing the work would bring long-term rewards. He knows this, yet he still chooses the quick hits. Video games, social media, TV, anything that fires instantly. So why does the mind avoid the very things that would make life better? And is there a way to trick the mind into liking hard things? Part 1. Dopamine. The answer begins with a chemical that quietly runs your entire life. Dopamine. Most people believe dopamine creates pleasure, but dopamine's true purpose is far more dangerous. It does not make you enjoy something, it makes you want it. Dopamine is the inner pull that drags you back to your phone even when you promised yourself you would not check it again. It is the invisible force that convinces you that a notification matters more than your goals. It is the craving, the chase, the anticipation. The mind does not even need the reward, just the thought of it is enough to hijack your attention. And this is the root of the problems. The modern world is engineered to trigger your wanting system thousands of times per day. A scroll, a sound, a flash of color, a small piece of novelty. Every one of those micro-rewards trains the mind to seek the easiest possible high. Meanwhile, the acts that build a meaningful life, studying, training, creating, building, trigger dopamine very slowly. Your biology is wired for survival, not deep work. And so every challenge begins to feel heavier than it really is. Part 2. The lab rats. To understand how easily a mind can be reshaped, researchers once tested something extreme. They placed electrodes into the reward centers of rats and connected them to a small lever. Whenever a rat pressed the lever, its brain received a burst of dopamine. The results were shocking. The rats pressed the lever repeatedly until they ignored food, ignored water, ignored rest. Some pressed until collapse. Their brains were not seeking pleasure, they were locked into pure wanting. Then scientists flipped the experiment. They blocked dopamine entirely, and the same rats became passive. They would not move to eat, not even to drink. Yet if food was placed directly into their mouths, they chewed with no problem. Their bodies worked, their desire did not. The disturbing truth is that the human brain follows the same rules. When dopamine spikes too often, motivation begins to shift away from effort and toward convenience. The modern world overwhelms the reward system so aggressively that the mind becomes conditioned to avoid anything that requires sustained focus. Part 3. Tolerance. The brain has a survival rule called homeostasis. If something spikes too often, the brain lowers its sensitivity. So when a man floods his mind with constant stimulation, endless scrolling, short videos, junk food, chaotic multitasking, the brain adjusts. It reduces the number of dopamine receptors. Suddenly, small tasks feel exhausting. Reading becomes a chore. Quiet feels uncomfortable. Sitting still feels wrong. Hard things feel harder not because they are hard, but because the brain has become numb. At that point, the mind craves only what is loud, fast, and instantly rewarding. This is dopamine tolerance, a state where the simple and valuable things of life no longer feel satisfying, and where discipline feels like an impossible fight against yourself. Part 4. The Detox. A man who understands this does not blame himself. He resets himself. A dopamine detox is not about abandoning pleasure. It is about recalibrating desire. Imagine a man who eats gourmet food every day. After a while, simple food tastes dull. But if that same man spends a week hiking in the mountains with only basic meals, suddenly the simplest dish becomes beautiful again. The detox works the same way for the mind. There are two effective methods. The first is the radical reset. One full day without screens, junk food, notifications, or instant entertainment. In that silence, boredom becomes a teacher, and suddenly writing in a journal or reading a book feels grounding. The second method is a lighter reset. Remove one high dopamine behavior for one day each week. No social media Sundays, no gaming Wednesdays. These resets teach the mind to find satisfaction in simpler actions again. The purpose is not punishment, it is restoration. Part 5. Work first, reward after. Once the mind is reset, the next step is structure. If a man begins his day with a reward, like checking his phone the moment he wakes, the mind is already pulled into craving mode. Focus is lost before the day even starts. But if he flips the script, everything changes. Then work first, reward after. 1 hour of study earns 15 minutes of leisure. 8 hours of training earns 2 hours of guilt-free relaxation. The rule is simple. The reward never comes before the effort. This trains the mind to associate progress with pleasure rather than escape. Part 6. Tricks to outsmart the mind. Once the foundation is stable, the mind becomes easier to guide. There are simple psychological tricks that make discipline feel less like a battle. Turn tasks into games, give yourself points, levels, visual progress. The mind loves measurable wins. Start small. 2 minutes is often enough to bypass the resistance. Once momentum begins, the mind naturally continues. Use instant micro-rewards, a small snack after finishing a chapter, a break after completing a task. Find people who work alongside you. Accountability multiplies effort. No one wants to be the one who falls behind the group. And perhaps most important of all, shift your identity. A man who calls himself lazy behaves like a lazy man. A man who calls himself disciplined begins to act like one. Identity pulls behavior into alignment. Part 7. The choice. Dopamine is not the enemy. It is the fuel that helps a man build his life. The real question is where he gets that fuel. From distractions that drain him, or from actions that strengthen him. From shortcuts that weaken the mind, or from progress that builds character. A man does not need to destroy his desires, and he only needs to aim them in the right direction. Hard things do not become easy, they become meaningful. And meaningful things never feel like torture once the mind is aligned with the goal. And here is something most men never realize. When you begin choosing the harder path consistently, your mind starts to respect you. Your attention becomes steadier. Your impulses lose their power. You begin to trust your own word again. And that quiet self-trust becomes the strongest form of strength a man can carry. In the end, the mind can be your greatest ally. If you learn how to guide it, if you learn how to reset it, if you learn how to feed it the right reward, so you can be still in strength.